Hare Krishna. So today we'll be discussing a very important topic, and it's quite relevant for, I think, for all of us. So as you all know, we already published it. So the topic what we are discussing today is handling anxiety and depression. So this anxiety and depression and all of those things are very commonly found nowadays, especially with this modern lifestyle. So let's get started with the prayers here, and then we'll begin our discussion. So this session is dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder and Acharya of this worldwide Hare Krishna movement. So what we'll be discussing today, it is based on the teachings given by Srila Prabhupada. So nicely he has explained and given us the wonderful insights on Gita and Bhagavatam. So we have taken some of those important insights from the teachings of Prabhupada and we'll discuss. So we'll begin with the prayers. So please join me, just fold your hands, and those who are familiar with the prayers, you can chant the prayers, or you just fold your hands and then we'll just start with the prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nidinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Bhashada Deshadarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So one time there was this lady who goes to the doctor and she says, the doctor, that I have some frog in my belly. So she goes to one doctor with a complaint that I have some frog in my belly. So doctor did not believe, and doctor said, no, it is not possible. How you can have the frog in your belly? So then doctor rejects to check. Then she goes to the next doctor with the same complaint. Then to the third doctor, fourth doctor. Like that, she visited 10 doctors. Nobody believed that it is possible to have the frog in the belly. So she was completely frustrated, completely anxious. And finally, she was figuring out that what to do. So then she tried one more doctor, the last, and this doctor actually could understand that the problem with this lady is not factual, it is more of mental. She somehow believed in that there is a frog in the belly. So this doctor decided to treat her. So she says, oh, yeah, actually, yes, we understand there's a frog. So we had to do a small surgery, right? So come on this date, and they fixed an appointment, and this lady came. So doctor took her to the operation theater, put her on unconscious. And then finally they made some seemingly small surgery, put some cut and something. She was unconscious. And then when she was awoke, she was conscious. And then doctor arranged one frog from outside in a cover, transparent cover with some water. And he says, actually, you were right. We took out the frog. You see the frog here. And then this lady was so happy. She says, oh, doctor, thank you very much. You are so nice. And finally, you understood. I tried so many doctors. Nobody was listening to me. They were saying that I am crazy. But they all were crazy. I'm so thankful. And she was very happy. And she left. Very relaxed, peaceful. She left. So this all other doctors, the doctor team, they thought, oh, this was such a brilliant idea. Right? It was such a brilliant solution to the problem. And they're all celebrating, cheering, and say, doctor, you are really smart. You could do this. So after 10 days, this lady comes again and she says, doctor, what? Actually, this frog had the babies also. Right? So what do we understand from the story? What is the understanding?
There is a wrong misconception, Prabhuji, about what she basically has. So she's interpreting the symptoms, or she's having a wrong diagnostics about self.
Yeah, so sometimes what happens, the problems doesn't lie in actual. It is more in our mind. right? Okay. So sometimes problems are actually more in our mind. So this anxiety is exactly like that.
టీవీ టైం అయిపోయింది ఆల్రెడీ వాచ్
Can you put everyone on mute? Okay. So the question is, this anxiety what we are talking today, is this really bad? Shall we have the anxiety or not? What do you think? Anxiety is good or bad?
It is good to a certain extent.
Little
It
silly.
is good. It is good to a certain extent, Prabhuji, like little bit, so that we are always on our toes in whatever we are doing, but not too much. Too
Right.
much.
So anxiety is actually explained. It is an indication of fear on the psychological level. Like we have the pain at the physical level, right? When there is a suddenly I sit on this chair and I feel some pain, something is picking. So there is a pain, it means there is indication there's something wrong with the chair. So I can check. Similarly, when there is anxiety, there is a fear. So on the psychological level, there is an indication given by the system. Actually, the creation has created, there is a way of response in our body, fight or flight. So you can understand, okay, there's something is wrong here. So let me see how to respond to this situation. Shall I fight with this? Shall I deal with it? Or let me understand quickly. If I cannot deal with it, then let me just fly away from this. Right. So actually, the anxiety, we cannot say it is right or wrong. It depends. So the fear or anxiety as an activity or as a mentality, right? Fear is not bad, but fearfulness is bad. What it means, the anxiety is an activity or anxiety as a mentality. How do we understand? Say, for example, if you are standing on some building on the top of the story, right? And when you peeps down, and suddenly you might feel a little anxious, a little fearful. A child is standing and peeping down from the top of the building, then he might be a little scared. So that fear, that anxiety is little. It is actually important. It's a healthy fear. But once you walk out from there and still you're thinking, oh my God, what if I fall down? What if something happens? And you're constantly thinking. So this is fearfulness. So anxiety as an activity and anxiety as a mentality. So anxiety as a mentality is very bad. Like all the time you are just worrying about something which did not happen. It is just like anxiety or worry, constant worry is like more of paying the interest of the loan, which you are not even taken. Right? Some people have the habit of this. All the time thinking, too much of thinking, overthinking. And they're constantly in anxiety. Right? So this is what happens. So question is, sometimes we may feel that, it was so wonderful if I have no fear in my life. There's no anxiety in my life. But is it possible? Is a question. Is it possible that we have no anxiety, no fear in life? It's possible or not, theoretically?
No, Prabhuji, it's not possible.
It is not possible. And actually, Krishna also defines in the Bhagavad Gita this very famous verse from the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 15th verse. And he says, Mam upetya punarjanma dukhalyam ashashvatam. So Krishna is explaining this material world, he's addressing as dukhalyam. Dukhalyam means this world is the place of miseries. Dukhalya, like we call Vidyalaya, like school, Pustakalaya, library. So similarly, this material world is addressed as Dukhalya. So the creator himself is telling this place is full of miseries. So we cannot be free from the miseries in this world. But what can be done is, the problem is the fear, or the problem is not the problem. Problem is when it is magnified beyond the proportion. So like you are driving on the road, there is a traffic jam. You have to reach somewhere on time, right? So there might be a little anxiety that, oh, I have to reach on time. But nothing wrong. The problem is that a small problem, you make it like something very big. And you constantly keep thinking and keep bugging yourself. That is where the whole problem is. So we need to understand this. Why it happens? What do you think? Why we have this mentality of always thinking, worrying, always feeling anxious? What can be the cause? So one cause is this. This is called, we call it fault of default setting. What do we understand from this? Fault of default setting. So like, for example, sometimes you see in a computer, there is some internal setting based on your history, search history and all that, right? So like say you have to search for Bhagavad Gita in your browser. So you type B, right? And as soon as you type B, so instead of Bhagavad Gita, it pops up something, it auto completes something, say Bollywood, right? So you did not, your intention was not to look for the Bollywood, but there is a default setting is there. So similarly, there is a setting inside us. You don't want to be anxious, you don't want to think negative about certain things, but automatically it happens because there is a default setting. So we need to understand this default setting. So this anxiety, this fear, this is an internal response, emotional response. So how do we deal with it? Is a question. That is the discussion today. Okay. So now let us talk from the Bhagavad Gita. To respond to this internal emotion, we need to understand our inner landscape. Right. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita helps us to understand our existence at three levels. So you see here, there is a existence at three level as body and mind and the spirit, what we call the soul. So Gita explains that. So this body is like hardware, mind is the software, and then finally the soul, which is our real self, which is the user. Right? So this body, mind, and the soul. So now, actually, there is a famous quote by Martin Luther King. He says that in this modern age, we have the guided missiles and misguided minds. So this is what is our current situation. So in this modern age, we have tremendous advancement on externals. Our technology is advanced a lot. We have so much facilities and so many things we can control externally. But there is a problem inside. There is a default setting. There is a fault in the default setting. Let's say, for example, there is a bug in the computer, right? So because of this bug in the computer, your screen is blurred. You can't see anything. So now what is the possible solution for this? What is the solution? We can go and change the screen. Get the good one, the expensive one, some branded screen. You can do that.
Yes.
Does that help?
No.
Actually, it doesn't help. So changing the external screen doesn't really solve the problem because we need to understand that problem lies somewhere inside. There is a bug in the software, not in the hardware. So that exactly the problem is. So what we are doing in this modern age, we have advanced tremendously. We are making so many arrangements externally. We have all facilities, all technology, all means of advancement, right? Very fast-paced life. Everything is there, but still people are not happy. People are always anxious. They're always worried. So why this external change, external advancement, this technological advancement, it's not helping. The fundamental problem is there is a bug in the system. There is a bug in the software. So we need to fix not the external screen, but the software inside. Right? So let us understand this. So there's a lot of theories. So initially they were talking about the root cause of the anxiety is uncertainty. People talks about that. So there are first world countries, there is third world countries. So the first world countries are like very prosperous, materially very advanced. They have all kinds, all means of livings, and everything is in abundance. Right? So, but they did one, uh, you know, uh, the research, and they found this first world countries with all prosperity, just supposed to be less anxious, people were more in anxiety in the first world countries. Especially, we'll talk about the first world countries. What comes to your mind? Like America, most advanced nation, in all means, like the technology, economy, and so many other things. But what do you think? Like there is one report, uh, this happiness index, right? So what do you think that America stands? Where does the America lies on that this happiness index worldwide. So they did the survey, all the countries, and which is the most happiest country. What do you think? Which can be the most happiest country? Ideally, it should be the most prosperous country, more advanced nation, should be the most happiest nation, right? People should be more happy. So this America, where does it lie? Any idea? Any guesses? All right. So this America is in the 16th place recently. Earlier, last year, it was 19th place. So this year they jumped little 3 above. And the most happiest country as per this happiness index is Finland, which most of us don't even talk about that country. So you see the initial few, that Finland, Denmark, Ireland, Switzerland. So these are the happiest nation. So these countries may not fall in the first world countries. They might come into different category. So the point is, what we are trying to understand is this modern means of external advancement and technology and modern means of happiness doesn't really make a person happy. People are still anxious because, as we discussed, there is a bug in the system. So changing the screen, external screen, doesn't really help the person. So let us look at this. So this was just an introduction. Now let us understand quickly, talk about how to fix this bug. We understood, okay, there is a bug in the system. The software need to be fixed. So how do we fix it? So just for you to give some key points, I'll call it 3 P's. So you can remember. We'll talk about now 3 different P's. So let us see that. How to fix this bug. So first P, I call it perception. Second P is process. And third P is perceive. Easy to remember? I'll ask at the end. Perception, process, and perceive. We'll talk about these 3 items, but just to keep it easy to memorize and remember. So perception, process, and perceive. So this is the way to deal with it. So let us look at this now. So first we'll talk about the perception. So the solution, what we are talking today, is the spiritual practices. As we said, handling anxiety and depression without medication. There are means of some medication is something people may try. What we are talking is spiritual practices. So how this spirituality helps us to change our perception. Let us understand this a little more, and then it will start making sense that it really helps. So from the Bhagavad Gita, we understand, as Krishna explains, that problems are not permanent. Actually, nothing is permanent in this material world. So it says, Dukhalyam ashashvatam. Everything is temporary in this world. So even the problems are also temporary in this world. So do not eternalize them. What happens? We have this bug in the system. We have the way of thinking in a certain pattern. So for example, say there is a pandemic. There is something is going on. So we can do whatever needs to be done on the circumstantial level. Like, recently the whole world faced this pandemic. So yes, there was a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, tensions around the world. And then people were doing whatever the measures has to be taken. Initially, they said that social distancing and sanitizing, and then finally they come up with some vaccination and all that, right? So whatever needs to be done on the circumstantial level has to be done. But the problem is when we eternalize the problem. Somebody thinks, oh, what if this pandemic is there? What if this pandemic remains rest of my life? What if it affects all my family members, all my relatives, all my friends? What if somebody dies in my family? What if someone lose the job? So constantly you can go on thinking about all of those things, right? So this is the problem. This is the anxiety as a mentality. Fear is not bad. Fearfulness, all the time, fear. So that is bad. Like another example I'll give you, a child who has the exam. So he can focus on 2 things. Either he can study well, or another thing is he can be constantly in worry. He can think, oh my God, what if I couldn't secure the good marks? What if I fail in the exam? What if I don't get the placement? Last exam also I couldn't perform well. So you can be constantly in anxiety. So you see how the perception is the problems are not temporary. There might be some history that you might have not performed well in the last exam. It doesn't mean that defines you. You can work hard, you can study well this time, and you can get the good marks. You might have failed in the earlier interview, but you can try again. So nothing is permanent, right? So like another example, simple example is somebody has to lift the weight, say 50 pounds. So you can lift the weight, but you start thinking, oh, if I had to lift this weight 50 pounds, the rest of my life, what will happen? So with that idea itself, you feel tired. You lose the energy to even lift the weight because you are making it eternalize. You're thinking this problem is going to be rest of my life. So this is the default setting. We have trained ourselves in a wrong way. We don't know how to think. So by default, you start thinking. So we need to change the perception that everything, the Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Matra sparshastu konteya sitoshna sukha dukkada agam apaino anityas tam titikshasva bharata. So what Krishna is saying, the problems in this world, they are like Sukh and Dukh are like Seet and Ushna, like the summer and winter season. And the nature of the problems in this world is Agam Apaino. It comes and it goes. So this is the right perception. Who is telling? Krishna is teaching in this Bhagavad Gita. That everything in this material world is like that. It comes and it goes. Everything is temporary. Nothing is permanent. So we need to make it eternalize. Let me just deal. Today's problem needs to deal today. Let me not make it like, oh, what if tomorrow something happens? We'll see. We'll deal tomorrow also. So it helps us to change our perception like this, right? So they say, don't tell Krishna that how big your problem is. Tell your problems how big Krishna is. So we always keep thinking, oh, such a big problem. What will happen? Who will take care? Something. So you're constantly in worry and anxiety. So we need to change the problem that your life is bigger than your problem. You yourself is bigger than your problem, right? Your problems, your tensions doesn't define you today. Maybe you don't know what is your power, what is your potential to deal with it. So don't worry about that. Just start acting on this. So it is changing the perception. Second P, which is process. So process means there is a problem. Now, how do I want to deal with it? How do I process it? Let us understand this. So spiritual practice change our perception. It change our self-conception. And that is a big revelation given in the scripture, especially in Bhagavad Gita. So let us understand this now. Spirituality changes our self-conception. So it is, if you're standing in front of a big building, a skyscraper, you may look very tiny, very insignificant. But if you are sitting in the plane, then that big building itself becomes very tiny. So you see how it changes the perception? It depends on where you stand. So if you're standing on the ground and looking at the big building, you might feel, oh, I'm so insignificant, right? But we can change the perception. So Bhagavad Gita gives us a perception about ourselves. That is why it is so very important that we read this Bhagavad Gita and understand some concepts. And it will give you the tremendous potential and power to deal with all your day-to-day problems in a very healthy way. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, is the 15th chapter, 7th verse, says, Mamai Vamsho Jivaloke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha, Manasasthanindriyani, Prakriti Sthani Karshati. So what is revealing here, Krishna is, he's saying, Mamai Vamsho Jivaloke. In this world, in this whole creation, all the living entities, they are my engines. They're my part and parcel. So Krishna is saying that you don't think yourself some small, tiny, insignificant, powerless being. You are actually belongs to me. So we all belongs to the Supreme Lord, all powerful Lord. Right? So suddenly when you understand this, you realize this, your whole conception about yourself changes. You're not fearful. You're not anxious. It's just like, when you have some friend, say some big man, some big businessman, or some big politician, say, for example, the hypothetical case, the president of the nation is your friend, very intimate friend. So then your whole body language changes. How you deal with the world, how you deal with your problem. Some small problem, the neighbor is bothering you. You doesn't really become anxious. You know your power now. Right? Your power is you're connected to some big person. So actually, that is what is our real potential is. As being the soul, we are all part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the all-powerful Lord Krishna. So for each and every small thing, we need not to worry so much. So we need to change our self-conception. Right? So we should understand, as Krishna is explaining here, Mame Vamsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are all Amsha of the Lord. Now, this is also another very revealing concept we need to understand, that we should understand that we are the small part. So when the parts get connected to the whole, it fills the whole. So there is a lot of vacancy in the heart. It's because we are not connected with our complete whole. So as being a tiny part of the whole, so Prabhupada or Acharya, he gives example. So he gives the example like a big machine is there, a mechanical machine. There is a small, some nut or bolt, something small, very tiny bolt. So the tiny bolt by itself may not worth much. It might be some few cents. But as soon as it gets connected to the machine, it might play a very, very significant role. And just because of one nut in the machine, just getting connected to the machine, it may become very, very worth. So similarly, by our own self, independently, we might be very powerless. But as soon as we get connected to the whole, the Supreme Lord, we change our conception that I am part and parcel of Krishna. Then suddenly you feel yourself worth. You can experience the potential. You can experience the true power. Right? So when the part gets connected to the whole, then that whole fills the whole. Right? So we had to learn that I am the part, I am not the whole. We need to understand, because what happens, again, the default setting. We think I am the whole. Whole means I am the controller. I can control the situations. I can control the people. I can do whatever I want to do in the world. No, it doesn't work like that. Say, for example, this is a nice example to understand. See, somebody has to catch the flight. So to catch the flight, you may be a little anxious. You should worry about, starting from home at the right time. Make sure that you carry your passport or your whatever ticket or something. And there might be some traffic jam, right? So we anticipate beforehand. So keep some buffer time also. So that much anxiety is allowed. It is healthy anxiety, healthy fear to reach and on time and catch the flight. So say now you reach on time, you enter into the aircraft. And after entering into the aircraft, you start worrying now. Earlier also your anxiety, you are worrying about reaching on time. You reached on time, you enter into the aircraft, and now you worry about, oh, is there sufficient fuel in the aircraft? Is the driver trained enough to fly the plane? Or they did all thorough check of the aircraft, everything is all right. So you start worrying about that, then there is a problem. So this is called fearfulness. You are taking unnecessary load, which is not needed, right? So how do we overcome this kind of anxiety? We need to understand I am a small part, I'm not the whole. It means there is a big system working behind. So I did my part, I reached on time, and beyond that, I should be peaceful now. Rest should be their system working. There is a whole airline system is there. They will make sure that there is sufficient fuel in the aircraft. There is a driver, train driver, he's not drunk, whatever needs to be taken care, the system will take care. Similarly, we should understand that I am just a part. My whole is the Supreme Lord Krishna. So I'll do whatever needs to be done. My part, I'll play my part. I'll play the part of the part, not the part of the whole. Right? So then it is very easy. So we play the part of the part, not the part of the whole. So when you start acting like as if you are whole and soul of everything, you'll be constantly in worry and anxiety. So we should not by mistake do that. Right? So it changes your self-conception. You understand that, yes, I have a role to play. Let me do that much role. Nothing much. So the fundamental cause of anxiety is we forget our real position. So our position is as a tiny part, and you forget and you start acting as a complete whole. I can control the things. I can control the world. I can control the people. I can control all the situations. Oh, why there is a fight? Why there is a war between Russia and Ukraine? You have nothing to do. So you can be anxious if you want, but you have no control over that situation. Why there is some politics is going on somewhere? If you can do something, otherwise just forget about it. Right? So that's the point. So thinking as whole and try to control is also another cause of constant worry and anxiety. So we should be very careful that we understand. So this spiritual practice helps us to change our self-conception. So the first item was perception. How do we see the things? How do we see the things? But everything in this world is temporary. Nothing is permanent. Our problems are also not permanent. They're like winter and summer season. It will come and go. So let us not make it eternal. Let us not eternalize. Let me do what needs to be done. Second P is processing. It change your self-conception. That I am just tiny part. Let me do the part of the part, not as a whole. So this is the one-line formula. Do your best, leave the rest. So you do whatever best you can do from your side to deal with the situation. But beyond that, you can't do anything. Simply sitting and anxious and anxiety and worrying doesn't bring any good to anyone. So you do your best and leave the rest. So that is the one line formula, if you can understand. Okay, let us talk about the third and the last P here, which we are discussing. The solution of the anxiety, handling anxiety is 3P: perception, process, and how we perceive things. So perceive means basically making the right choices in a life. What do you want to pursue? There's so many things are going on in the world. Do you want to do each and everything? No, so make the right choice, what you should do. So for that, we need to understand that for every situation, we have certain things that we can control and certain things we have no control over. So now the real intelligence is make the right choice. And what is the right choice? Do the things where you have the control, right? So shift your focus to which you have control, and that is the right choice. If you start, doing something which you have no control over, then you will be always experiencing the multiple failures again and again because you have no control. And then you will become more frustrated, more anxious, more worried, right? So like that. So we have to change our focus. So there's this thing. You can see this. So if somebody asks you a question, do you have a problem in life? If your answer is no, then why worry? If your answer is yes, that you have the problem in life, then next question should be, can you do something about it? Right? So if you say yes, you can do something about it, then why worry? And then your answer is no, you can't do anything about it, then why worry? So there's no reason to worry. You just do your best and leave the rest. So this is pursue, make the right choice. So this making the right choice, actually, this spirituality helps us to make the right choices in life. Okay. So I'll tell you one story. It's a famous story told by your Acharya Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada explained there was this old lady, and one time she goes to one fair, the Mela. Right? So when she goes there, and she was mesmerized by seeing big setup and big arrangement in an open field. And when she saw the thousands and the thousands of people, and they're coming from different parts of the state and the country, they all gathered there. So she started thinking, oh my God, a lot of people here. Where would they stay? Where would they eat? They have no kitchen also. How they'll arrange their grocery? When they take the bath? How they'll use the restrooms? She started thinking all of this. She became super anxious. So the point is, do you really need to worry about each and everything in each and every one? So make the right choice that what you really need to worry about. We cannot worry about each and everything. Right? So sometimes we get into, each and everyone's life, what is happening in this person's life, what is happening in this person's life, and you unnecessarily take some load and anxiety. So we should be very, very careful. Right? So before that, let me just come to the conclusion here. So we discussed about 3Ps. Let me see if people can quickly recall all the 3Ps. What are the 3Ps?
Perception, process, pursue.
All right. So it's very easy to remember. So spiritual practices help us to change our perception. that nothing is permanent or problems are not permanent. So deal with it. Don't worry. Don't make it like a permanent anxiety. And then processes or self-conception. You know that you are the part of a big system with a part of the big powerful personality, which is Krishna. Right. And third is perceive, make the right choices. So this Gita, Bhagavatam, Ramayana, and Mahabharata, they teach us, they educate us to make the right choices in life. Now question comes, let us come to the very practical part of this. That, oh, Prabhuji, it is very nice to hear all this philosophy. Right. But every time when I have some problem, some anxiety, when I'm going through some challenge in my life, so do I really need to sit and think of this P, that P, 3 Ps, and all of that? Do I really every time need to do all that? What if I forget one of the P? Or I'm too much of anxiety, then I forget all the Ps because anxiety is so much. So it is not going to work like that. So your lecture sounds good, but it may not work. So how do we understand this? So the point is, we need not to every time sit and think and process all this theory. But there is a permanent solution, permanent fix. What is that fix? Actually, this when we are talking about a spiritual practice, helps us to change our 3 Ps. So we had to talk about what are those practices. So we had to really get into those practices. So that practice is what we call it meditation or prayers or worship, whatever you call it. Once you start doing this, then you become, it's like a stabilizer. It stabilizes you. So you might be too anxious, but when you sit in the meditation, and then suddenly you feel that automatically, slowly and gradually, it rises your consciousness. So it's all about rising your consciousness from one platform to next platform, wherein your perception is the right perception, your processing is the right processing, and your choices are also the right choices. So this mantra meditation, which we discussed last time also, and which is the recommendation from the scriptures over and over again. There's so many references given in the scriptures. So when we really get into this practices, this meditation, it is like a stabilizer. It stabilizes us. It helps us. So the instant relief, if you want, whenever you feel anxiety, due to whatever reason, you feel a little fearful. So what you should do is, immediately you should start chanting this mantra, which will give you the instant relief. And then you should not wait to chant this mantra only when you are in anxiety, but you should daily practice. Daily practice. Then automatically it takes you to the next level. It changes your perception, your self-conception, your choices. And then you know that how to deal with it. Right. So that is the real solution part. So ultimately the solution is we have to rise high. Our consciousness should be elevated. So that is the solution, the real fix. So we should understand that we are like the moon in the sky. You see here, sometime when you see the moon, it is very fixed, bright, right? But that moon is reflected into the water. So in the water, when the water is shaking, so moon also seems to be shaking, right? Though the moon is on the very next level, it cannot be shaken. But just because it came in touch with the water, which is shaky water, so moon also appears to be shaky. So this is what exactly our position is. So as Krishna says, you are my part and parcel. So we belong to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So we are like unshakable as being the spirit soul, as the real being, real I is unshakable. But why we are so much anxious and worried in this material world? Because we comes in touch with this material nature, which is always like shaking. And then, though we are like a moon, unshakable, but because of this touch with the material nature, which is always shaky, we also experience there's some turbulence in our life. Right? So we should understand that we belong to something much bigger. Right? And then we understand that when we process that, and then gradually how to do all of that is by simply chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra and reading Bhagavad Gita. So reading Bhagavad Gita helps us to build up this understanding, these concepts what we are discussing, like few concepts we have taken today, right? Changing our perception, changing our self-conception, making the right choices. So when we regularly read Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam, it gives us this intelligence, this right knowledge. So we understand. And then at the same time, we keep practicing this meditation. So this is the fix. Okay. So let me pause here and see if anybody has any quick question here. Those who are online or those who are in person, please feel free to ask your question. I keep this time for asking the questions. I can talk more, but let us talk about some practical challenges in what we discussed or anything anybody wants to add.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So we say that Dukkala Shashvatam, including the problems. But the situation we are in now is, Prabhu, the problem one comes, it goes away because it's temporary. By the time problem one goes away, problem two is already waiting.
What is that?
So
By the time problem goes, what is that?
Problem one goes away, by the time already problem two is waiting for us.
Yes.
So overall, it looks like problem one is gone. But if you see day to day, we are in some other problem. Right? So with all this problem after the problem, how we can improvise our consciousness, because we'll be always, one example always we hear from Prabhupada or someone is, if you are constantly in touch with iron, you become fire. Sorry, if your iron is constantly in touch with fire, you become fire. So if you are in constant touch with problems, our attitude also will be fearful of attitude, fearfulness of attitude, right? So with all the in the midst of all this problem, how we can elevate our consciousness?
Yeah, so it's a good question. He's saying there is a problem. By the time one problem is over, second problem is waiting. So it has become like a constant loop, problem after another, problem after problem. So the point is, that is why we are saying that we need to work on fixing the bug inside. So the fear or the problem is not the problem. Problem is fearfulness, that attitude of constantly worrying about each and everything. So the point is, we are not trying to ignore the problems and the fear. We had to do whatever needs to be done, but at the same time, we are not making it like permanent. So this problem, so yesterday's problem doesn't exist today. So then I should know from my own experience that today's problem will not be there tomorrow. So let me deal with it today. Why I'm making it like, oh, what if this problem lies permanent in my life? We start behaving like this. And that is when we become more anxious. So for that, this mantra meditation really helps to maintain the cool and calm of our consciousness. And this daily reading, like it is nourishing our consciousness, nourishing our intelligence. Right? Every day you are refreshing your intelligence from the scriptures, building up the right perception, the right choices, right? And the right conception about the certain situation in the world. So every day when you work on that, then gradually you change your past conditioning. It is like changing the default setting. So there are two ways. Okay, let me just put it this way, your answer. So as I was saying, I was giving the example of sometime when you type something, there is an auto pop, right? So you type B for searching Bhagavad Gita, it will show you Bollywood. You did not desire to see the Bollywood, but because of the default setting, as soon as you type B, there is a Bollywood. You want to see Bhagavad Gita. So now there are two ways of changing this browser. One thing is you mechanically go and close every time. But the next time again you type something, it will pop up something. Another way is you go and change the internal setting. So we are talking about changing the internal setting, which is this meditation and strengthening our spiritual intelligence. So then what happens? By default, we have this habit of always worrying and anxiety. But gradually, with this internal setting changed, then you will not worry about much. You know, okay, don't worry. Krishna is there. Don't tell Krishna that how big your problem is. Tell your problem how big Krishna is. Right? So all of those things gradually when we process, it change your attitude, our consciousness, and our outlook about the situations and the problems in life that you goes. That answers your question?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, anybody has any other quick question or any other comment? Okay, so a lot of people are sitting here. Anybody has any question here? Yes. You can take the mic and speak.
So we understood the whole three things, but when actually we are in a situation where there's a problem and it just seems to take up all our attention throughout the day. So how do we reach like a point where at that moment, even though we know this, we can practice something that we can stay away from, control our emotions and get through our responsibilities without being in that all.
So the question is here that though we know all this theory and we understand all these concepts, but actual situations comes in life. In that time, how we make sure that we are not carried away by all those emotions and situations? That is your question. Okay. So this is what is needed, the constant practice. So how it happens is, how does it work is, as I said, you are already working on fixing the bug inside by meditation, by reading Bhagavad Gita. So you understand, but it doesn't really see when somebody is sick. So I already started taking the medication, say for example. But it doesn't mean that tomorrow I'll not have any symptoms or any pain. It may be there, but you continue to take the medication every day. Then in the due course, what happens, you will see the symptoms are reducing. The intensity of the symptoms are gradually going down in the due course. So we should have the right expectations also. Just because you attended one session today, we understood few concepts from Bhagavad Gita. Okay, we know the this meditation. It doesn't mean that tomorrow if some situation comes, then I should be free from all that. We may not. But then he says, then if it is still the same situation, what is the use of all this discussion then? Yes, there is a great help, which is what is, after you go through all the situation, anxiety and worries, you have the power to contemplate. So when you contemplate that, oh, I was so much getting anxious and worried and all that, but I heard in the session, I am the part and all these things, what is it? So you try to apply it that time. And that time you might feel relaxed and you may realize it was not worth to put that much of mental space into that small problem. So maybe next time I should be more careful. But it doesn't mean, again, to very practical, you think, you contemplate, you realize that, oh, it was not worth to, worry too much about that silly thing. It doesn't mean that next time when there is a problem, you will not be worried. Again, you will be worried. But then again, what you will do is, again, you will contemplate. So when it's a constant practice, and at the same time, you are already taking the medicine, you're chanting, you're reading Bhagavad Gita. So your immunity becoming strong from within, which you may not see suddenly, but it is building up in the due course. So this constant contemplation makes you help to analyze the situation, and you will start realizing it is not work. It was not work. I did this, but I should have not done this. Next time again you will do, then again you will realize, again you did the same mistake, but it was not work. I should have not done this. So then what happens? It brings certain kind of a consciousness in the due course. Multiple times, multiple failures, but there is a consciousness is built up. Some awareness is built up. So there will be a time, there will be a situation when as soon as you face that situation, immediately all those things will trigger. And you will be in a situation to analyze. Every time I'm doing the same mistake, every time I'm worrying, anxious and all that, it is not helping me. Yesterday's problem is not today. Today's problem will not be tomorrow. So let me just hold on. Let me give a pause and think, do I really need to give so much of mental space into this situation? And you will think. So what will happen is it will delay, or it will reduce the intensity of your attitude of worrying and anxiety. So in the due course, you will see it helps. So it is not only just mental exercise, because you are eating, you are actually strengthening yourself from within also. You're building up your immunity to deal with all those situations through meditation, through reading of the scriptures, building up, strengthening your spiritual intelligence. Then you will see it happens. But again, to be very practical, it is not an overnight process. Suddenly, just because one lecture we heard and tomorrow I should be free from all the anxiety and worries. It won't work like that. But everything is all about gradually practicing certain things. We hear all this, we know all this, but when it comes to practice, we fail. So that is why we should make a conscious effort to apply when it is needed. So you can just make some key points, what resonates with you. Try to apply them. If you couldn't apply them on the right time, at least apply them later to contemplate, to meditate, and that will help in the due course. That makes sense? No. Any other question? Okay, so the recommendation is that every day we should practice this mantra meditation, which is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, there's a lot of research has been done on this mantra. Probably maybe in some other session, we'll try to show you some videos. Some scientists have done some research that how just by the sound vibration, chanting on this Mahamantra, that certain frequency of the mind, which is like seeing somebody is too anxious, just by hearing this sound, that anxiety goes down. So a lot of research has been done. It's a very powerful mantra. So even spiritually speaking, we can talk from the various scriptures, from the various scriptures, and even scientifically also we can take it into consideration that it helps us to calm down our mind. So every day we should make the point that we chant at least. We spend some time. It can be 10-15 minutes every day, and gradually we can increase as the time permits, right? And then 5-10 minutes if we can read one verse of Bhagavad Gita every day, something like that. So this 15-20 minutes of investment every day will bring a very, very positive transformation in the due course. It will help you to deal with all this anxiety, depression, worries, and so many other facets of these things there. Okay. So let us practice this chanting of Hare Krishna mantra now. So we'll chant together. Those who are new, I can show you how to chant this mantra, and then we'll chant together. So I need one mala. Okay, anybody is new to this chanting of mantra? Not if, okay. Okay, it's very simple mantra. Those who are new, you can give them the mantra card also. Okay. So this is a very simple mantra, like you can see in the screen. This is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we chant this mantra, constantly in a loop. And what we do is, it is called mantra meditation, a sound meditation. So we try to focus and concentrate on the sound vibration. So we just keep hearing. So your mind will wander here and there. So what you have to do is you have to bring your mind back again. And then in few seconds again it will go, bring it back. So this is the exercise. So let us do this for a few minutes. And so one round takes like 7 to 8 minutes. And then you can practice at home every day. Just 8 to 10 minutes of investment daily. Those are not practicing this, you can start practicing. And the beauty of this mantra is it can be chanted anytime, in any place. So there's no rules and regulations for this mantra chanting. It's very simple. So before that, we chant one Panchatattva mantra, invocation prayer, which is in the card you will see. The Panchatattva mantra you can repeat on the center beat. You chant once. And on each and every beat, we chant the full mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So full mantra on one beat, and then we keep rotating the mala like this. So please repeat after me the first mantra, and then we'll chant it. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So now we'll chant together Hare Krishna mantra. So try to chant with me. Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.